Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you're well and I hope you had a great weekend. Have you been enjoying taking a look at our caterpillar friends and all that they have changed? The interesting thing about the caterpillars this year is that usually, and I think I had a picture where they are attached to the top of that lid, and I don't know why and I don't know how, they seem to have fallen. I did look into it and it says they're going to be fine, and I'll place them into the butterfly net differently than I would if they were attached to the top of the lid of the jar. So at this point, don't panic, all is well, and we'll continue to keep watching them and see if we get some butterflies I'm hopeful by the end of the week. We'll see what happens. Our butterflies and the butterflies that we've been learning about are different varieties, and ours are painted ladies. I had to stop and think for a second. I'm going to share a book today that is called A Monarch Butterfly's Life. And a monarch butterfly has a little bit different life than any of the other butterflies. Monarchs do what's called a migration. And they're going to move from one place to another, and they move all together, and it's really cool, and it happens in the fall every year. And you can Google that, or you can, there are wonderful videos showing about the monarch migration if you want to take a look. But I'm going to read a story today that's called A Monarch Butterfly's Life, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to read the beginning of this. It says, there's an editor's note, and it says there are thousands of different kinds of butterflies in the world. Monarchs are a type of milkweed butterfly. The caterpillars feed on milkweed leaves. Milkweed is poisonous to most of the butterfly enemies. Eating the leaves makes the caterpillars and the adult butterflies poisonous too. Each year, the monarch butterflies in the United States migrate hundreds or even thousands of miles in the fall when the weather grows cold. Many of them make it all the way to Mexico, and during the winter, they roost in huge colonies. In the spring, the monarch butterflies head back north. Along the way, they mate and lay eggs. Those eggs hatch and grow into adults that continue to fly north, laying eggs as they go. These eggs grow into adults that fly back to where their great-grandparents began. No single butterfly survives an entire round trip. So that's a little bit about the butterflies and what we call the migration. On a hot July day, a young monarch butterfly in Virginia begins his journey north. This book is kind of wiggly, so I'm going to have to do it this way. On her way, she lays eggs. Her last egg is laid on a milkweed plant in Connecticut. 3 days later, a monarch larva or caterpillar hatches. And do we know what happens when the caterpillar hatches? Why don't you go ahead and tell somebody at your house what happens once that larva gets out. The caterpillar feeds on milkweed leaves. Then a wasp tries to lay eggs on the caterpillar, and she brushes it away. That's interesting, isn't it? Soon the caterpillar crawls to the ground. She attaches herself to a fence with a bit of silk. Now this is what I was hopeful that our butterflies were going to do, was attach with a little bit of silk to the top of that lid. And they did for a short time, and I have no idea what happened to them and why they fell. Her skin hardens and she becomes a chrysalis. 2 weeks later, the monarch reappears, and now she is a butterfly. We are getting chrysalises in our container, so don't worry about that. The monarch butterfly stretches her crumpled wings and makes her very first flight. She lands on a milkweed and she uses her proboscis to sip nectar from the flowers. Suddenly, a net snatches the monarch butterfly. Have you ever gone outside with a butterfly net and been able to catch any butterflies? It's kind of fun. When I was a little girl, that's what we used to do in the spring and summer. The child who caught her sets her free. The monarch butterfly's days are spent flying, sipping nectar, and resting in the sun. Mrs. Boffman enjoys resting in the sun on a beautiful day. In late September, the monarch butterfly begins a long journey south. And she travels. She's joined by many other monarchs, and they are heading south. And this, is, boys and girls, is called a migration. They're moving together. By November, she has reached Texas. A gust of wind blows her into a lake. And after resting for a minute, the monarch butterfly breaks free of the water. In early December, she reaches Mexico. She has traveled more than 2,000 miles. And Mrs. Boffman just thinks that is so cool. Millions of other monarchs have made a long trip too. And this is a picture that shows how they, when they migrate, how they get all together. And it's really, there are some live, real pictures of that, boys and girls, that you can Google, and they're just beautiful. The weather is perfect. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, and by the middle of March, it's very hot, and the monarch butterfly goes back north. So butterflies like the same kind of temperature. They don't like it too hot and they don't like it too cold. A male monarch finds her and dances in circles in the air. She chooses him for a mate. She lays hundreds of eggs on her journey north. She lays her last egg on a milkweed plant in South Carolina. She will not live long enough to return to Connecticut. But on a warm August afternoon, her offspring does. Do you know what the word offspring is? Offspring would mean that would be the baby to the mom. And so she is still alive. And now she is going to mate, lay eggs, and then there's going to be more monarchs. And they'll migrate in the fall and come on up in the spring. It's a wonderful, I think monarchs are super cool. Remember, if you want to go ahead and you can Google, YouTube would have some great monarch migration videos you can watch also. I hope you enjoyed the story today. I want you to think about what's something different between the monarch and the other butterflies that we have talked about in the last week, and see if you can compare and contrast them. You won't have a response today for reading. I just hope that you enjoyed the story. I miss you guys. I love you guys. Have a super day, and I'll see you tomorrow.